Hi, I'm Susie Garden, and this is the Ageless and Awesome podcast. I'm an age-defying naturopath and clinical nutritionist, and I'm here to bust myths around women's health and aging so that you can be ageless and awesome in your 40s, 50s, and beyond. The Ageless and Awesome podcast is dedicated to helping women through perimenopause and menopause with great health, a positive mindset, and outrageous confidence. Hit subscribe or follow now, and let's get started. Hello, gorgeous one, and welcome to Q&A Thursday with me, Susie. And today's question is from Ali in Perth. And she has asked, why has my period gotten heavier in perimenopause? Shouldn't it be getting lighter as I'm coming to the end of having periods? Look, this is a really common misconception, is that I think we almost have a thought that as you're going to get closer and closer to not having a period anymore, that it gets lighter and lighter in the lead up to this. And it's actually really common for periods to be heavier. It's also common for it to be erratic as well, and sometimes heavier, sometimes lighter. So there's a few kind of elements to this, Ali. So let's talk about it. So firstly, let's define what heavy actually means. For those of you that don't know, what's considered, I guess, normal in inverted commas is 80 mils per period. And if you think about, how would you actually measure that, then there's a few things. If you have a menstrual cup, then that's really, really easy to measure. Otherwise, a super tampon will hold about 10 mils, and a regular tampon or pad will hold about 5 mils. So you can count how many you're using and see what that adds up to. Just some general things, if you're not really into adding it all up, if you're soaking through a pad or a tampon in less than an hour, if you are waking up in the night to change a pad, because your flow should be a little slower during the night because of gravity is one of the reasons. But yeah, that does generally tend to be a little slower. If you're passing clots, and particularly clots that are kind of bigger than a 20-cent piece, then that is, something that is too heavy. If you are getting something called a flood happens when you get like a gush that can just come through a tampon or a pad that you're wearing. And generally there'll just be a sense of a fluid kind of letdown. I have had clients that have actually had, sorry, this is going to be a bit graphic, but have had blood running down their legs. And they're wearing like a tampon and a pad. So that's too heavy. That's something that needs to be looked at. So that's what we're looking at when we're describing or defining a heavy period. And the causes of this, clearly there's going to be a hormonal cause, because when you think about what's happening in perimenopause is you're getting these surges of estrogen while the progesterone is really dropping away to virtually nothing. And so that dwindling progesterone is kind of allowing the estrogen to dominate. We used to call this estrogen dominance, and there's nothing to oppose that estrogen. So often that can lead to heavier periods. Often there can be breast pain that's associated with that as well. Sometimes there can be underlying conditions such as endometriosis, even if you've never had that before, or adenomyosis. So if you are getting, if you look at those signs that I just listed out, that your period might be a little bit too heavy, you definitely need to get that checked out by your medical practitioner, because there may be an underlying cause that needs to be sorted out from more of that medical perspective. But yeah, that's definitely something that can happen, and you can get diagnosed in your 40s with these kind of conditions. So that's pretty important, but it is probably more likely that it's going to be just driven by the hormone fluctuations that happen in perimenopause. So in terms of natural approaches to this, certainly we can, as naturopaths, do hormone testing to see what is going on. I tend to only do testing if I'm not 100% sure, or if I'm thinking maybe the symptoms are not matching with what you would expect at this stage of your life, or if there's just other things potentially going on. But so I don't normally do much testing unless it's really going to influence the treatment protocol significantly. But we can certainly, as naturopaths and herbalists, use herbal medicines to support increasing your progesterone to help balance that out. There are also herbs that we call styptic. So they're actually, so it's STYPTIC, styptic, and they actually reduce the flow of your menstrual blood. And they're awesome. They can work really, really well. I had a lady, probably a couple of years ago now in clinic that was, she said she thought her periods were normal, because when I do an initial consult, she was actually coming to see me for anxiety. And during the consult, I always ask about periods, regardless of what you're seeing me for. And she said she had normal flow. And I asked her, well, how many days do you bleed for, and how many, tampons, pads, etc. are you using? And she was using, wait for it, 12 super tampons a day for 2 days, and then it was lightening off. Her period was lightening off, and she thought that was normal. And she was getting flooding through the super tampon. So 12, you remember that calculation, that's 120 mils a day for 2 days, plus additional days at a lesser rate. So it's at least 240 mils plus, but a normal period is defined as 80 mils of flow. And I gave her some herbs to help with lightening that flow, as well as a few other things. And within a cycle, her flow had decreased dramatically. So there's definitely things we can do to help with that. And she felt so much better. Oh my God, like so much better. And also we can use food to support liver detoxification to help improve that relative estrogen excess. So we used to call it estrogen dominance. We now call it relative estrogen excess. So certainly liver supporting foods such as your cruciferous vegetables. So that's things like your cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, garlic, onions, spinach, kale, all that sort of thing. If you just Google cruciferous veggies, you'll get a whole list of them. Now, you do need to be a little careful. If you do have thyroid issues, you need to cook cruciferous veggies really, really well to kill a certain plant chemical called goitrogens that are present. So if you cook it really well, those goitrogens are destroyed in the cooking process, so they're not a problem. But I don't recommend eating raw cruciferous veg if you have thyroid issues. If you don't have thyroid issues, it's completely fine. So, Ali, I hope that's kind of helpful. Your period is not really expected to get lighter and lighter as you lead up to menopause. What will happen is you may get heavier, you may not, and then they'll just kind of stop. So once you've hit 12 months of no periods, then you are officially in menopause. If there is, just as an aside to that, if there is any bleeding after you reach menopause, so after that 12 months of no period, then that definitely needs to be investigated as well by your medical practitioner. So I hope that's been helpful. I know questions like this can be a little tough sometimes to ask your practitioner. So that's why, if you want to send me a more sensitive question, just DM me, Susie, at Susie Garden Wellness, or if you're listening to me on Spotify, you can just send me a message through the app. Have an awesome rest of the week and a great weekend, and I'll be back with a fresh new episode on Tuesday. Thanks so much for joining me today on the Ageless and Awesome podcast. If you liked today's episode, please make sure you click the little plus button if you're on Apple Podcasts, or the follow button if you're on Spotify, so that you can get each new episode delivered to you every single week. If you like free stuff, and who doesn't, then head over to susiegarden.com and grab my 8 essential age-defying secrets every woman over 40 should know right now. Or if you'd like to continue the discussion, head over to Instagram and DM me at Susie Garden Wellness. I'd love to connect with you.